Yonex is in trouble. So let's talk about it. Now, the way this video is going to be structured is that first, I'm going to give just like a brief overview of Yonex in the tennis community, why they're starting to become such a big name, what you may expect from them, and just a few like basic things about the company itself. And then I'll go into some of the factors that are leading into this problem that they're starting to have, which I haven't really seen a lot of people actually acknowledging recently. And it may just be because I see it from the retail side, because if you don't know who I am, my name is Brody Taylor. I've been working in a tennis retail store for the past 8+ years, and Yonex is one of the big 4 vendors that we actually do have in the store in terms of rackets. And so this is something that we've noticed on the store side and that I've noticed just outside of my store as well, just in the general tennis community as large. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, and let's get right into it. First thing to know about Yonex that I'll mention is that they have kind of made up the 4th member of the big 4 in terms of tennis racket manufacturers that are in the tennis community. The big 3 were always Wilson, Head, and Babolat, but now Yonex is making a giant rise and is really being a big contender in actually outselling Wilson, Babolat, and Head. Now, I don't have the exact numbers of my store specifically, but you've probably seen, whether it be at the club, at the high school level, the college level, the middle school level, juniors, even into the professional level, there's a lot more players using Yonex than there ever have been before. Now, that is what I believe is because Yonex does make a great product. They have about 50 different human quality control checks in their factory alone in order to make sure that every racket is the spec that it says as soon as it ships out from the factory. Now, of course, if for some reason something happens during shipping or the racket somehow gets slightly chipped or damaged and then the weight's off, okay. But typically, from my experience, almost every single Yonex I've ever had to weigh on a RDC machine that we have at our work to spec match, or just to go ahead and just try and like figure out the specs of any Yonex racket, majority of the time, if not, I'd say probably 99% of the time, they've been on point with what Yonex has said. So I highly do trust the quality control that Yonex has put in, and they're very particular about their craft because they want to make sure that everything is good and is perfect for the player that's going to use it. They understand that a great product leads to great playing and just a better customer relation. Now, earlier this year in January, a few big things happened for Yonex, and this is where I think the snowball effect of the problem they're feeling now started. Big thing number 1 was that they released the brand new Ezone in January. Big thing number 2 was Madison Keys winning the Australian Open using the brand new Ezone. Now, granted, the colorway was a little different, but it was still the brand new Ezone that Yonex had just released a few days, or if you want to go by the end of the tournament, a week and a half or a week prior. So with the combination of a brand new racket that just released earlier that same month, being the new Ezone, which is arguably Yonex's most popular frame of racket because they have 3 main lines, the Ezone being their more power-oriented racket, the V-Core being their more spin-oriented racket, and the Percept, previously known as the V-Core Pro, being their more control-oriented racket. The Ezone was the one that kind of fit the most play styles and was the most, I would say, versatile of the 3. Now with a brand new colorway, which was designed to focus a little bit more towards the younger audience with how vibrant and how like in your face the blue is on it compared to the older versions, which were a little bit more subdued. They were a little bit darker and not as like out there. The new Ezone was sticking out and a lot of people were really interested in it. And then by having Madison Keys, now granted, of course, Yonex didn't know this was going to happen because it's tennis, but with having a representative with the brand new Ezone ending up winning a Grand Slam with the racket that just came out, it makes a pretty compelling argument for people to want to try and to demo that new racket. And so that's exactly what they did. At my store, at least, We had, as soon as the new Ezone just launched, our demos were gone. Like, people were trying that. You had to wait at least a week or two before you even got the chance to try one itself. So people were really hyped about this, not only just because Yonex had been making the Ezone for so long and it was starting to get its own kind of cult following, but with the additional help from everything that happened at the Australian Open, it just kind of steamrolled everything else. Even though there were other rackets that launched around the same time, like the brand new Technofibers, being the T-Fights, there was the brand new Dunlop SXs, there was the brand new Wilson Clash, there was the Head Gravities, being the Gravity Tour, which came out in '98. The Ezone kind of just like gapped all of them and has not stopped since then. And now they're starting to kind of feel the effects from it, from what I've seen personally. With more and more players backing the Ezone and backing Yonex, as well as even more proof that the racket is capable of performing at the highest levels, this racket is everywhere. Like I mentioned earlier, you see it at all levels of play, from professionals to even intermediates to junior level players. You can't really escape the Ezone. And the thing is, there's a very big demand for this, and Yonex wasn't necessarily ready for that, because their big thing is that they only have the one main factory to do all of their quality control checks, to make all the rackets, and to do everything else to make sure they produce their quality product. So they have that out in Japan, where the company's originally from, and it takes a long time for them to make one racket, let alone hundreds and thousands of rackets, because of the immense amount of people that are wanting to try it globally. So that's where the problem starts to come in, is that Yonex is having a very hard time keeping up with demand for all of the new Ezones. Like, these things are just gone. And the crazy thing is, in order to try and keep up with the demand for all of the Ezones, Yonex has pretty much shut down almost all production on the V-Cores and the Percepts, as well as, I believe, the Astrals too, which is their other kind of line. Now, granted, of course, they do have the Regina too, but that one's a little bit more like specific and niche. So is the Astral. But of the big three lines, Yonex is pretty much just like gung-ho on this Ezone, because they know that's what everyone's wanting right now. So if you're a player that uses the V-Core or the Percept, like I personally do, right now, if you can find them, great, but you probably won't be able to here soon, because Yonex is like, sorry guys, we gotta make these. Now, the Percept is a little bit more of an interesting tale, because they did just come out with their Midnight Navy colorway at the time of recording this. It did come out, I believe it was like last week or the week before, officially for people to purchase. So they were able to get that shipment in, but anything after that is kind of just like hope and pray. Yeah, it might be here. We're not sure, because we have to focus on the Ezone. And this starts to become a problem, because if someone is looking for a control type racket like the Percept, or a spin type racket like the V-Core, or current V-Core and Percept or potential V-Core Pro players are looking to upgrade their racket for the first time, but Yonex doesn't actually have any of the actual rackets to supply them, they're essentially gonna kind of like move on to a new brand almost. Now, there are going to be some that are true brand loyalists. They're never going to leave. They're never going to move, because they know Yonex is the way, and they're completely okay with waiting. But for potential junior players that are wanting to move into new sticks, because they've either grown taller, they've gotten stronger, they have changed their game style, this is where it starts to get hard, because you can't really get a lot of Yonex rackets right now. The V-Cores, from what I've seen, because they aren't making them, as soon as the limited quantity that is there is gone, that's it. Now, if we follow the typical racket release trends, being that the Ezone came out this year in 2025, it does stand to show that the V-Core itself is set to release a next year in 2026, that would be, if you look at the trends, how that normally shakes out. But the thing is, if they aren't able to fix this problem, I don't know if that's going to be able to happen. I sure hope it's able to happen, and I sure hope that Yonex is actually making a new V-Core. That I would assume would be something they would want to do. But if they can't make anything because they have to focus on the Ezone, that's not that good. And I already know at least 1 to 2 people that personally that have switched. This guy I know, he switched to the new Ultra Pro from his V-Core because he's like, you can't really get any more of these, and these ones are kind of like shot. So he just had to go to a new company. And I think that's what's going to keep happening if Yonex is not able to figure out this problem. Now, to some, this is an amazing problem to have. You have so much demand that you can't keep up with supply. Yes, it's great because you know that you have the orders to fill and you know that the money is going to come in. But if you can't fill the orders and then people start to get really mad because they're like, hey, I ordered this racket like 2 to 3 weeks ago. Where is it? Then you start getting into destroying the brand and the reputation that they had built up by having such a superior product to some companies and just the actual great experience of playing with them. But if you can't get it and you ruin that reputation, that's a very hard thing to come back from. Just because once usually a tennis player picks their racket, we're usually staying with that racket for a long time because it's comfortable, it's familiar to us, we liked it, and we're not really trying to switch unless something else really, really big comes out and we're just like, okay, fine. It's been long enough, or my game style has changed into a way that I think this would be beneficial for me. Then we can make the switch maybe a little bit earlier, but a lot of people just use what they have for the entire time they play just because it's easy, familiar, and then they just get it restrung every so often. So that's where I think the big problem is coming from Yonex, and that's why I say that they're in trouble. It's very hard to come back from a big tarnish of reputation, which if they are not able to figure out what's going on and able to produce all of their rackets in an effective manner rather than just tunnel visioning on the Ezone itself, then it's going to be a very, very tough case for them to come back and just kind of like make it back up against that the other big 3 being Wilson, Head, and Babolat. It's going to be tough. I think and I hope Yonex can do it because, like I said, I do like their products. I do use one of their rackets personally for myself. I've always enjoyed them. But if they can't make them, or if they can't get enough out to stores to where people can actually purchase them from approved retailers, then the retailers, they're not going to give those rackets out as demos to people because, yes, it may help them at that point, but if the person cannot buy the racket, there's no incentive for the actual retailer to give them the racket because they don't have it to sell. They're just going to move to another brand that is similar and is going to also help the player in the same way as the Ezone or any of the other Yonex rackets in order for them to still get the best quality that they can get at that current time. So, with that being said, that's the big problem I think Yonex is facing right now. I really do hope that they are able to come out of this and just come back stronger, whether that be opening up a second factory or just being able to figure out how to effectively manage all 3 of the big racket silos that they do have. And hopefully we can get everything squared away and we can continue and go back to where everything is fully in stock, and those who wish to have an Ezone can have an Ezone. Those who wish to have a V-Core can have a V-Core, and those who wish to have a Percept can have a Percept without having to worry about their grip sizes not being available or just if the racket's ever going to actually show up. So, with that being said, if you like the video, leave a like on it. Comment down below any questions you have about the Yonex thing. Have you noticed that the actual Yonex rackets are harder to come by yourself? I would love to know if you've seen this somewhere else before. Me being here in the US, I'm a little bit, I'll say, limited in where I can see some of these things just because I'm not shopping outside of the US because like import fees and customs, and I don't want to pay for that because I don't want to pay for that. So if you have any other intel or you have any other experience with this incident that Yonex is finding themselves in, let me know in the comments down below. And with that being said, as always, take care.